Hello lovely people, welcome back to my channel. I hope you are all well. Welcome back to another Nervous Guide video. This time around we're doing it for the play Handbagged, which is currently touring up and down the UK over the next couple of months. So if you want to know anything about sensory, content warnings, my experience in the show, that's all going to be in this video. So let's hit that intro, start it all off, and let's get into it. So I was on the fence whether I was going to do this as two separate videos or one complete. I decided on the two. So if you don't know, when I see a show I tend to do two separate videos on that show. The first video, this video, it's called the Nervous Guide. The Nervous Guide is where we discuss any content warnings, any sensory warnings, any things that I found with the show itself, and my experience seeing it, where I sat, where the theatre was, that kind of thing. And then the next video is what I call the review. It's not a hard and fast, I know everything, here is my thoughts. It's basically where I talk about things I enjoyed about a show, things I may have not enjoyed as much, if there is anything, my thoughts, my feelings and everything in between on that show. I call it a review because it's easier than to say the ramblings of a crazy person. I enjoy seeing theatre. Most of my theatre I see alone, and so I film these videos as a kind of one memory place to share thoughts, and just because I can. Anyway, let's get into this video. Where should we start? Firstly, I saw it at the Wolverhampton Grand. I believe most places that Handbagged is showing, it's on for 2, maybe 3 nights. We had it at the Wolves Grand for 3 nights, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then it moved on. There was no merch available, there was no programs available, which hurts my heart. We all know that I absolutely adore a program, and in regards to the theatre, we all know how much I love the Wolves Grand, and so some things that I tend to put in these videos, I don't say it over and over and over again. So things like toilets and front of house staff, etc. The Wolves Grand is one of my favourite places in the world, and I will never say a bad thing about anything like that. We sat in the stalls for this show. We sat in M33 and 32 or 30, something along those lines, which was the end of a row next to a pillar. So obviously, because I was next to it, didn't cause any sight problems. M is towards the back of the stalls, so easy access through the door to get in and out of the stalls, which was a help and a hindrance in that if people have to leave throughout the show, that door is opening, that door is closing, but it is what it is. So view was pretty decent. As always, I will try and leave a video of my view here for your viewing pleasure. The show itself runs for 2 hours 15 with interval, including the interval, which was 15 minutes. So it's essentially an hour, 15 minutes, an hour, I think. I didn't time it, but it's about that mark, so it's a decent chunk of theatre for your books. Plus, I don't know about everywhere else, but the prices for this play in the Grand was actually really reasonable, compared to some tours we've had recently. I'm not saying many names, but things like Hairspray, which I didn't have the chance to see in the Wolves Grand in the end because the only tickets available were like £85, and that hurt my soul. So that's a story for a different day. Let's get into the content and sensory warning area. If you don't know Handbagged, and we will get into this a bit more in the next video, but it is basically telling the story between the Queen and Margaret Thatcher during Margaret Thatcher's, I was going to say tenancy, but it's not. When Margaret Thatcher was Prime Minister of Great Britain, what went on during that time. Obviously some things were taken with a pinch of salt, some things were told in certain ways. Again, we'll discuss this more in the next video, but in regards to content, apart from the discussion of a assassination on Ronald Reagan, or assassination attempt, should I say, on Ronald Reagan in America, and also talk about a bombing that happened at a conference in Brighton which involved Margaret Thatcher herself. There isn't anything else content wise to discuss. Sensory wise, again, we are relatively light. It's always a joy. So Act 1 starts with a blackout. When Act 1 begins, the lights go down, then Margaret Thatcher is stood with a light from behind her, and she is reciting part of a, I'm assuming, famous speech. And that is how Act 1 begins. In relation to sensory things, Act 1 is quite nice and light, because that is pretty much the only thing that I've got written down. Act 2, the start of Act 2 begins with the two male actors slash characters on the stage. They start talking to each other. The lights slowly dim down. When the lights have gone and the initial conversation finishes, the Queen characters are then announced back onto the stage, where you are told, if you are able, to please be upstanding for Her Royal Highness the Queen. And on that moment, at least at our venue, the Queen characters come out through the audience. They shake hands with a few members of the audience before climbing back onto the stage. They obviously don't do the entirety of the stalls, so me being towards the back, they didn't get that far, but they did shake a few hands, talk to a few people, kind of like if you'd gone to greet the royal family and you stood on the side of a street, that kind of conversation. But it is something to be aware of if you are not happy or you don't like people coming near you at plays or shows. Like I said, there is discussion in Act 2 surrounding the bombing that happened at a political conference which happened in Brighton, which involved Margaret Thatcher and other members of her political party. They kind of talk about what happened before the bombing took place and how she was in a room in the hotel, and then they start to discuss what happened from the bombing itself. During that time, or just after they kind of finished talking about what happened, they being the two Queen characters and the two Margaret Thatcher characters are stood on stage. The top coin set piece has a set of lights and smoke. the lights go white, there is smoke slash haze from above the coin set piece, and everything kind of gets a little bit distorted at that point, and then it kind of cuts back into the action on stage, kind of highlighting what happened in that time. But there isn't an explosion sound as sorts, there isn't any gun sounds or visible guns or anything like that. Like I said, there is mention of things like assassination attempts and the bombing that happened at the political conference, but there is no loud sounds to go with it. Upon entry to the theatre area, the Wolves Grandeur did have some little posters. I don't think you even saw that, apologies, but it basically put handbag contains smoke, haze and loud sounds. This performance will last 2 hours 15 with an interval. Like I said, there was a little bit of haze and smoke used during the times I've already mentioned. Loud sounds weren't necessarily super loud. There is some music used throughout the show at different points, whether it's been sung by the cast or it's been played through speakers. For the most part, not massive amounts of really loud sounds. I've been at performances at that theatre which the sound volumes have been a lot higher, so for the most part I was okay with the levels at this show. The only thing to mention was that Act 2 finishes with a small blackout of sorts. Basically the lights just go down as the show finishes, kind of symbolises the end of the show, if you will, and then the lights come back up, the bows happen, and everything is done and dusted. It's quite a nice, easy show in regards to content, sensory and all those things, and it was definitely an interesting show to go and see. I still have to write my notes to film the other video that you are going to see next, which is the review, but yeah, it was definitely me kind of stepping out of my normal theatre world a little bit, and that is what I aim to do more in 2025. Not just go and see shows that I think I'm gonna love or I know I'm gonna love, and going and exploring these shows that I probably don't know anything about going in. I'm excited. But there we go, all wrapped in a nice bow. The Nervous Guide to Handbagged, the play, currently touring in the UK. For your viewing pleasure, like I said, the next video on this channel will hopefully be the review, so look out for that when it comes out on Sunday. But all that's left to say is the usual. Thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed, I hope you come back next time, but all that's left to say is that I love you all lots, and I will hopefully see you next time. So long, farewell, auf Wiedersehen and goodbye. Bye everyone.